To speak against the Crimes, Theft by Employer and Amendment Bill. And before I do, I'd just like to acknowledge my fellow Northland colleague, Mark Cameron, for his very emotional and touching speech today in the House. Great, thank you, Mark. And I'd like to also acknowledge Camilla Ballich on the other side of the House for her work on this bill, and of course the original person, member who brought the bill, Labour MP Ibrahim Omar. And it's always I suppose it's when you come into this place, it's a great privilege to then get a bill drawn and get the opportunity to present and debate and discuss it, and you take the result as it comes. So, well done. So, I'd like to begin by saying that the purpose of this bill is to suddenly start turning some employers into criminals. Now, for those of us who have actually employed people and run small businesses, I'm just thinking to myself, it's a real, when you go out to go into business for yourself, right? You go out there, you risk you risk your own capital, you mortgage your house or your business up to the eyeballs often to get started, and it's really, and you put yourself on the line. And this is something that it always frustrates me. I find those on the other side of the House seem to struggle to really accept that what that brings and the stress and strains that. It's interesting, they're saying that theft is okay. No, we're not saying theft is okay. But criminalising people in business, right, because they might make a mistake, and you say that's not the intent of...
Yes, but a mistake isn't intentional. That's the whole point of the thing there. When you criminalise someone, you've actually got to prove prove that it was intentional, not unexpected. Like, I can tell you this happened as me in a personal situation. I did a one-day trial with Capity Candies. Didn't get the job, whatever. They paid me for the day's trial. 4 years later, 3 or 4 years later, it was quite a fair bit later, they employed someone else who had the first initial of their first and last name was the same as mine. So on the payroll software, it showed up as SS. Magically, out of the blue, the money ended up on my account. Now, I can tell you right now, that's an innocent mistake.
Of course.
That Capity Candies owners would not be dragged through the coals for doing it. I mean, also, they appreciate the honesty of me, because I went down there, I actually rang up and said, hi there, you've paid me money. I don't work for you. How do I send it back to you?
Yeah.
And that's what we did. And they appreciate the honesty. Probably something like a couple of years later, kind of like, maybe that was the person who brought it. I mean, that sort of thing there. But as being saying in there, that's an honest mistake. That would not land you in the local district court with a wage theft by employer charge.
I mean, no one's going to jail over a system error.
Yeah. It's deliberate intent.
Of the bill. But then again, you see, this is the issue here. It's you talk about intent. Intent becomes then a debating point, right? So you then have to, and so you've got this employer here who's gone on, he's risked everything, they've employed people, and if you're a small employer, which most employers in New Zealand are, most of them are, it's at 97% are small business people, right? So that and I can speak as one of these myself, you've got to be in charge of health and safety. You've got to be in charge of all your wages, in charge of all your compliance, running your business, and dealing with everything that comes with it, right? And you may make a mistake, and then someone says, well, actually, I think that was intentional. So therefore, suddenly you find yourself potentially caught up in the criminal justice system, right? And you're saying, look, they really are desperate over there, aren't they? I mean, if you go, well, I suppose it's nearly the end of the night. You're allowed to be desperate, But yeah, and it's. Do you imagine the stress of that? You think you've been doing everything right. Suddenly you find yourself with a knock on the door, and there's a policeman standing there. Can you just imagine how you feel about that? And your family is there too, seeing the policeman knock on all women.
What? So the police are going to turn up there on payday because it didn't arrive at 6 o'clock because Westpac was being a pain in the butt to BNZ. That's a personal one between me. And so at 7 o'clock, Officer Divils from the local police station is going to be there with Officer Prod and going to sit down there and go, we're going to wage theft here? I doubt it. I doubt it. I mean, put it this way, I doubt that even with a theft, with the location of it, they turn up there that quick. They're not going to get a warrant to sit down there and do it, Yeah, I feel that, Grant McCallum here, I wonder if anyone's out there who's a journalist might take a worthwhile to take a look at his business affairs, because the way he's going about, he's taking this very, very personally.
I did have a look at some of his commentary on on another bill. There's a few red flags with this guy.
Yeah.
Knock on the door and say, actually, we think you've been stealing from your employees. And that would, the stress and strain that would bring to that small business owner would be something that I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy, right? And so that
I do.
Well,
I
yeah,
want on your worst enemy. Yeah, you steal.
yes,
Yeah,
but I bet you would have no problem with someone being wrongly sanctioned on the MSD work benefit. You know, which you could say is technically the same thing, especially if you're wrongly sanctioned. It's theft. You know, that scares a lot of Wins case managers when you tell them they've stolen from you when you use those terms. You know, this is theft. It's theft as a servant. Theft as a servant comes with much more serious penalties than simple theft.
that is what really frustrates me. With this whole thing. So there are solutions. You see, people on the other side, it always seems to me, they start from the position of the employer is bad. It's almost like it's another war on employers. It's never ending with this lot. It's a war on employers. And quite frankly, those of us who've risked our capital and so forth, just get really frustrated by this, right? It's allowed to steal. Don't you know there's a law against stealing, right? And there are solutions. Boy, they're very vocal on the other side of the house tonight. Am I saying something that's upsetting them? I'm not really sure. But anyway, look, so I just think it's really important that we already have solutions here under the law. We don't need to create more red tape, because all that's going to do is just make it harder to be an employer, right? Much, much harder to be an employer, right? So, look, it's interesting that the New Zealand Law Society even had some...
Yes, harder to be a bad employer. Yes,
that's the goal!
Concerns. They had some concerns. They said the use of intentionally could inadvertently lead to capture situations where employers would genuinely withhold paying employees. Well, that's the actual problem, right? And this is, we do not want to, it comes down to a matter of interpretation. See, at the moment, our court system is clogged up enough, right? If we're going to put potentially more and more people in criminal courts, so you're that employer, you think you've done everything right, suddenly with the police knocking on the door, you then find yourself caught up in a criminal process. And you've got to wait and wait and wait. And the stress of having to deal with that and live with it is exactly, as my colleague here says, your reputation in the local community. And then, so suddenly you then go out to the marketplace to employ someone else. They go out to employ someone else. And believe me, people talk, obviously. And so our employees going to come and work for you if they think you've been stealing from somebody else. And particularly when it's all actually not proven and you've made a genuine mistake and you find yourself in front of the judicial system, waiting and waiting and waiting, having to deal with running a business. It's just not good enough. And so that is why we are very much opposed to this bill, right? And we actually trust employers in this side of the world. You know, as a farmer, I've had to put up with the fact that the regulators and the people on the left just don't trust us. Haven't trusted us for years. They keep on saying it's all your fault. This is another example of it, where the left just do not trust employers. They blame us for everything. Well, actually, I'm sorry. This is not the case. Employers in this country are the backbone of this country. They risk their capital. They make the difference. And we are the ones who will out to turn this country around, and we do not to be held up to be criminals, because you might make a mistake which then might be interpreted as a criminal activity. And that is what the problem is, right? That is why we are completely against this bill. And it's with that, Mr. Speaker, before I finish, I'd just like to thank all the members of the Select Committee who were part of that process, in particular, Camilla About should move the motion, and also like to thank the Honourable Phil Twyford, and a number of people who weren't there at the time, my fellow colleagues on that Select Committee, Parmjeet Palmer, and thank you for that, Mike Butterick, great to see you here this evening. But actually, fine. I just about forgot the chair. I'm in trouble now. I'll have to get the afternoon teas for the next week or 2 or 3. And actually, our colleague Carl Bates, who's was also on that committee. So anyway, thank you. Therefore, I do not commend this bill to the House.
Oh my God. That was painful. You did save the worst for last.
Oh, I still haven't finished, but I've got some better ones coming up. But they'll feel good better ones, shall we, just to be honest. I mean, I'm doing these in order that speeches go in there. But yes, no. Now, I will be honest, while he was in that debate, I did go to the insolvency website. There was no Grant McCallum who has had an insolvent company, and there's only 3 McCallums on there, 3/4, because one person, it says an alternative name, that is actually on there as, so he hasn't gone bankrupt, put it this way. Not like Donald Trump, who's gone bankrupt 6 times. But, yeah, I feel like, it's one of those things, what do you call it? Accusation is always a confession. Yeah. Someone's probably going to type me the right words on there, that every accusation is a confession. That's what it feels like on there. Yeah, I think we're going to have a lot of riled up people tonight, and these clips are going to go far and wide.
Yeah, I mean, you saw my brain melt in real time.
Yeah, it's just basically, it's just like, oh God. Like, we are probably seeing the very worst side of our MPs have come out in this bill.
Yep.
Yeah, it is.
Very telling.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, at the moment, I feel like I'm Jet Yuga. The way it's like, going through that, like Pat's very civilized on BHN. I feel like I'm Jet Yuga tonight when it comes to this bill. So let's get to some more lightweight with our favourite youngest MP.